Let's get straight to it. My wife and I tied the knot at 25 and now we're 38. We met in college, got married, and life has been pretty great. We both graduated, landed good jobs, and built our life together. My wife worked for her dad's small business while I worked for a big company. Then my boss suddenly left, and I was the only one who knew how to run the department. So I got a significant raise, better bonuses, and improved benefits. By the time I was 28, I was making around 3 times more than my wife. When I was 28, we welcomed our first daughter. And 2 years later, our second. My wife, thanks to working for her dad, had more flexibility in her work. About 5 years ago, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly, putting my mother-in-law and wife in a tough spot. They had to decide whether to sell the company or run it themselves. Since my mother-in-law had no clue how to manage it, my wife stepped up and took over. Surprisingly, the business thrived under her leadership, just like when her father was in charge. So my wife got a massive raise, even more than what I was making. I felt proud of her because going from an ordinary worker to running a whole company is no small feat. Our daughters started feeling the impact of not having us around much. That's when my wife and I talked about one of us staying home. She suggested that I quit my job since her company couldn't afford to lose her. I agreed. And so I became a stay-at-home dad and husband. I handle everything at home now. Taking care of the girls, cooking, cleaning, fixing things, running errands, you name it. I do it. When my wife returns from work, I make sure to pamper her and take care of her needs. Everything was going smoothly until about a year ago when my wife's attitude began to change. She started saying hurtful things like, "Do you even do anything? Or why don't you get a real job? What? I work my butt off every day to ensure you come home to a stress-free environment. I did have a real job. But I gave it up to take care of our girls, our home, and you." My wife has always a big desire for closeness, but lately, she stopped initiating it. And whenever I ask, she's never in the mood. It was strange and confusing. I figured she must be really stressed with all the pandemic stuff and other things going on. I tried to be understanding and make her happy. But no matter what I did, nothing seemed to work. Last weekend, we went to my oldest daughter's softball game. I wanted to take a video for my parents who live in another state and don't get to see their granddaughters often. I forgot my phone, so I asked my wife if I could use hers. She'd been on her phone all day, so I thought it would be a good chance for her to take a break from it. She handed me her phone and went to get a drink and a snack. While recording my daughter, a message popped up on some app, and I decided to check it out. What I saw was something I could hardly believe. So there's this guy at my wife's workplace who's 8 years younger than me, and they've been texting, sending explicit videos and pictures back and forth. They're talking about how close they are and discussing me in not so nice terms. He's calling me a wimp who can't take care of my woman, and unfortunately, my wife is agreeing with him. I couldn't believe what I stumbled upon. It hit me hard. I felt devastated and furious at the same time. When I heard my wife coming back, I quickly closed the app and started recording a video. On the way back home, and even when we got there, my wife tried to talk to me, but honestly, I wasn't in the mood to chat. Eventually, we lay in bed, and for the first time, I guess they hadn't met in a while, she tried to have closeness. I let her know that I'm not really in the mood for it. And then she goes like, "If you're gonna be all moody about everything, fine. Go sleep on the couch." I got up and ended up here ever since. I'm so lost right now. I don't even know how to handle this situation. My wife meant everything to me and my daughters are my whole world. Update. First of all, I've got all the texts, pics, and videos as evidence. Second, I don't own any of the company. It's split 50/50 between my wife and mother-in-law. Third, I can't bear to sleep in the same bed anymore. I've been crashing in the guest bedroom every night, and that's where I'm gonna stay. As for my decision, I've chosen to divorce her. So this morning, I called a law firm in another town to keep things discreet. Luckily, they had a last-minute opening, so I rushed over after dropping off my girls. Long story short, the lawyer I met was really good. I showed him all the evidence I had, and he said it's pretty much gonna screw her over in the divorce. Since I left my job to raise our girls, and she's hardly ever home having an affair and prioritizing this other guy over us. She's gonna lose big time. The lawyer said we'll get child support, alimony, I'll keep the house, and she'll have to pay for it as long as my girls live there. So the lawyer mentioned that we might be able to get more money since I'm considered not viable in the working world anymore. This extra money could help me pay for more education to find a job. Some of you were right. He advised me not to work until after the divorce is settled. Apparently, as the husband, having a job could lead to losing a lot in the settlement. Then he asked if I wanted full custody of the kids. I told him I don't mind my wife spending time with them on weekends occasionally, but I'd prefer to have mostly full custody. The lawyer said that since she had an affair in our home, I have a strong case for full custody. Bringing a stranger over to the house put our girls in danger and makes her look guilty. So I'm going for full custody, allowing her to have weekends once, maybe twice a month. No man will be allowed around my girls. And if there are, she could face issues from me if I find out. I just don't want that piece of crap around my daughters. He suggested keeping quiet until the documents are ready, and then he'll arrange for someone to serve her with the divorce papers along with an order to leave the house. He expects to have everything done sometime next week. He told me to stay quiet for now, even though it's tough, and I'm angry. He said to shut up until the divorce is finalized. After that, I can say whatever I want about her, but until then, keep my mouth shut. He wants me to act normal. No fights, no issues, sleep in separate beds, and no closeness. I said, sure, no problem. But why? He told me to trust him. Just follow his advice and don't question it. I just got home, and I'm getting ready for dinner, trying to act normal. I'll pretend like everything is okay until she's served next week. I can only make 2 updates on here. So if anyone cares, any more updates will be on my page. Quick edit. The lawyer suggested I get an STD test and a DNA test for my girls. When I asked why, he said, incidents like this are pretty rare. And may not be the first time they've happened. Hearing that hurt and scared me to death. Update. I've been feeling down lately, and things have been tough. Just to make it clear, I've discussed these posts with my lawyer. I didn't go into too much detail, but they said it's okay to share as long as I keep things brief, and not too specific to avoid giving away too many details. So for this quick update, I'll keep it short and legally safe. Let's start with the test results. I got an STD test for myself, and thankfully, I came out clear with no diseases. It's not surprising considering I haven't had much closeness with her in the past year. Now on to the one that many of you might be wondering about. The paternity test for my 2 girls. Regardless of the results, I'll always be their dad. But I'm thrilled to announce that, yes, I am their biological father. I've never been happier to know for sure, even though I never thought I'd have to question it. But there you have it. As for what has happened with my soon-to-be ex, well, she's out of the house now, and I've been granted full temporary custody of my girls. I'll share more specific details about everything in the future, but for now, she's no longer living here. My lawyer handled the legal process of having her removed from the home. And it wasn't a pretty situation. But I'll save those details for later. She got served with the divorce papers at her workplace, and it seems like it didn't go well. But again, I'll fill you in on the details another time. My girls are aware of what's going on. My oldest knows that we're separating, and one of her friend's parents went through the same thing. She's seen what happened with her friend's family and doesn't want us to split up. She's been crying and asking me to let mommy come home. It's really tough for her. I'm going to arrange for them to see child therapists to help them understand everything as advised by my lawyer. My youngest one just wants her mommy back and misses her a lot. It breaks my heart. And I feel like a terrible father right now. I'm worried they might even hate me because of this. Sometimes I wonder if I should let their mother cheat on me just to keep the family together and make my girls happy, but I can't bring myself to do that. Another thought crosses my mind, like considering an open relationship and waiting until the girls are older. But that's not something I'm okay with. Besides, I know the girls would sense it and not like the idea that mommy and daddy don't love each other. As for my ex, she's currently living with her mother. My mother-in-law reached out to meet with me, and I agreed to see her sometime. She didn't ask for details, but she begged me not to take her granddaughters away. I reassured her that she's a wonderful grandmother. And as long as she can separate her daughter's issues from the relationship with my girls, she can still be in their lives. She thanked me, and that was that. My ex has been trying to call and text me wanting to figure out us. Under my lawyer's guidance, we've set up a trackable method for communication, strictly limited to discussing the girls. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's where things stand for now. Hey, everyone. I wanted to give you a quick update on what's been going on. So first of all, I spent Thanksgiving with my soon-to-be ex and mother-in-law. I did it solely for the sake of my girl and made sure my lawyer understood it was about them not getting back together. We got that all sorted out. Before Thanksgiving, I had a meeting with we had a pretty open discussion mainly about how we'll handle things with my daughters after the divorce. During our talk, my Mill shared some information about my STBX. Turns out she was cheated on by her high school boyfriend. I had no idea she even dated someone back then, so this guy, my Mill mentioned, came from one of those families and they warned her to stay away from him. Then one night, my STBX caught him getting close with another girl, which shocked my Mill. My STBX had a couple of boyfriends during college, but my Mill knew those relationships wouldn't go anywhere. She told me that as soon as she met me, she felt like she found her perfect son-in-law. She's really sorry for her daughter's behavior and promises to make sure she doesn't cause any trouble during the divorce. So a couple of days before Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law asked me to come over for dinner with the girls. I asked if my soon-to-be ex would be there, and she said, yes. I told her I couldn't do it if she was going to be there, but my Mill understood and requested if we could put on a holiday act one more time for the sake of the girls. She said I could ask my lawyer if it's a bad idea, so I did. The lawyer advised me to let my wife know through the app that this was just for the girls, so there wouldn't be any confusion. I did just that. My STBX had contacted me before begging to see me and the girls. The girls also pleaded with me to let them see their mom. I decided to swallow my pride for their sake, and we went over for dinner. The whole situation was awkward. When we arrived, my STBX hugged our daughters, which was fine, but then she tried to hug and kiss me. I avoided her and went to hug my Mill instead. My STBX tried to act like we were still husband and wife and kept trying to talk to me. I answered with simple yes and no responses, and I helped my Mill finish dinner and clean up. My religious mother-in-law wanted to say a prayer and my soon-to-be ex sat next to me. I held my daughter's hand. And when my wife tried to hold mine, I pulled away. It may seem petty but I just don't want her touching me. I'm an atheist, but out of respect for my Mill, I go along with it. Dinner went fine. However, my STBX kept acting like we'll still be a married couple, asking about Christmas and vacations she wants to take with us as a family. That's when I realized going over was a mistake. After dinner, I cleaned the dishes, and I was ready to leave. But my daughters wanted to watch a movie with their mother, which we usually do together. I allowed it, but when my STBX tried to cuddle next to me on the couch, I moved to a chair. Throughout the evening, my Mill was visibly upset with my STBX's behavior. You could see it in the looks she gave her. When the movie ended, we started to leave. My daughters fell asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went back inside to get something, and that's when my STBX grabbed me in tears, begging to work on things and be a family again. Before I could respond, my MIL grabbed her by the hair, no joke, yanked her away, said goodnight to me, and started yelling at her daughter. Yeah, so I talked to my lawyer and told him everything. I made it clear that there's no indication of reconciliation, and you made that clear in your messages. The lawyer said it's all good. Now my wife is calling and begging to work things out, but I'm leaving her messages on read. I'll only talk about the girls, and I'm pretty sure they'll want to do the same for Christmas. I'm not sure if I can or if it's okay, so I'll talk to my lawyer about it again. Update. I'll keep it short, but things have become really tough for my girls. So my girls had 2 therapy sessions this week. The first one went well. They seem more at peace and calmer than usual afterward. I talked to the therapist, and she seems to understand my girls really well. So I took them to their second session, and things got completely messed up. The therapist explained to them in a way they could understand for their age that their mom cheated, had an affair, and betrayed me. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. When I picked up my girls, they burst into tears and clung to me, hugging me and saying they love me. It's heartwarming that they love me, but this wasn't how I wanted them to find out about the separation. I asked the therapist why she told them, and she explained that the girls knew we were separating and noticed how I treated their mother with meanness and lack of love. She said kids aren't dumb. They know how their parents behave. They wanted to know why we were separating. The therapist tried to handle it delicately, but she believed it was essential for their progress in therapy to be honest with them. I'm not going to go into all the details of what she told them, but it was age appropriate. They know their mother was unfaithful in a way they can understand. My oldest might handle it better, but my youngest is struggling. When we got home, my girls clung to me crying the whole night. So I ordered food, put on their favorite movies in my bedroom, and we stayed there all night. They fell asleep, and I went to the bathroom and cried. My STBX doesn't even realize the pain she's causing our girls. I don't know how to handle this. The therapist suggested trying medication for a while to help them adjust, but I refused because I don't want to drug them. The therapist understood and said it was just an option, but we'd need to see their primary doctor for that. I'd rather help my daughters deal with their emotions in a healthy way. As for Christmas, I won't have to worry because my daughters now hate their mother. I was surprised when my oldest said she never wants to see her mom again. Even my youngest follows what her sister says. Even if she might actually agree, it shocked me. I tried to tell them that they may be mad, but they shouldn't hate her because she loves and cares about them. My oldest just insisted that she doesn't, and they both cried in my arms until they fell asleep. Update. I know it might sound like a bad movie sequel, but let me be clear about this update. The girls are doing better. They're still seeing the same therapist, but they're improving and coming to terms with things. They no longer hate their mother, but they've told me they don't want to see her for a long time. Those are their words, not mine. We'll have to see how that pans out. I informed my wife that the girls know about her affair, and she tried calling them. They answered, but she's been more respectful of our boundaries since then. I think it's finally sinking in for her. Now about the other guy involved, I already knew he was a piece of crap, but man, he's really terrible. Someone asked if there was another person in the affair, and I didn't know. So I looked through some of my wife's work stuff and found a piece of paper with all employees' numbers and emergency contacts. I called his number, and it turned out to be his wife's number. So turns out he's married, which I didn't know. And to make things worse, he also has a toddler. When I told his wife about the affair, she didn't believe me and hung up. But later, she called me back and wanted to meet. We met up, and I showed her all the evidence. She asked if we could go to my car and we did. As soon as the door closed, she burst into tears, crying, and asking how he could do this to her and what she did wrong. I reassured her that she did nothing wrong and gave her my lawyer's number. Then she asked how long the affair had been going on, and I told her it had been about a year, maybe a little longer. That's when she went from upset to absolutely furious. I asked her why she was so angry, and she revealed that the reason for her wig was because she had beaten cancer. After their child was born, they noticed some strange things while she was in the hospital, and they found a tumor. Over the past year and a half, she went through a lot. She had 2 surgeries, went through chemo, and was on medication. Despite all that, she looked good and it surprised me. She said she beat the disease and is better now. But she and her husband haven't had closeness in about 2 years. She explained that during her pregnancy and cancer treatment, it was just impossible. She got really sick while pregnant and that this disease took a toll on her. After starting to feel better, she struggled with her self-image. The meds caused weight gain. She lost her hair, and she didn't feel as pretty as before. She wanted to surprise her husband with closeness since she felt ready for it. But after finding out about his affair, that plan was ruined. She cried about her child growing up in a broken home, and I tried to console her. Then she tried to be close with me, but I declined, telling her she wasn't in the right state of mind, and it wouldn't be healthy for either of us. She thanked me for being honest. Later, she asked for the evidence, and I gave it to her before she went home. We've checked it a couple of times since we're both going through this difficult situation, so we'll keep in touch. So thank you for the few people who mentioned looking for the other betrayed spouse. I didn't even think about it. Update. Hey, everyone. Just wanted to share how Christmas went with the other betrayed spouse. It was actually really nice and wonderful. All things considered. I set up a bunch of presents from Santa for the girls. This might be the last year my oldest believes in Santa, so I wanted to make it special. I laid out the gifts early in the morning while it was still dark. Within 15 minutes of waking up, the girls were excited, saying Santa had come. I dragged myself out of bed and they opened their presents. They were so happy. After that, we snuggled up on the couch and watched a movie, and they fell asleep next to me. I eventually got up to make some coffee. My youngest woke up and said she was hungry, so I let her help me make breakfast while wearing an apron. My oldest woke up too, and we all had a good meal. They played with their presents and had a blast, and it made me really happy. Later in the evening, I helped them get ready to go see their mother and grandmother. Usually, I'm stricter with them about getting ready, but with everything going on, I'll admit I've been more lenient. They got ready, but said they really didn't want to go see their mom. I told them that their mom loves them, and my therapist advised me to encourage their relationship for the proper growth. Otherwise, my wife could use it against me in court, claiming I'm isolating them. The therapist said the girls can decide to have a relationship with their mother when they are older. My wife knows about the therapist and they've talked. The therapist basically told my wife that she betrayed me, and it's clear that I'm the girl's favorite. She'll have to earn their trust and love back. Then I said, don't punish grandma for your mother's actions. Go see grandma. They agreed. I took the girls to their grandmother's place, and it went smoothly. I called my mill when I got there, and she came out to get the girls' things. They were staying the night for Christmas, and my meal asked if it was okay. I checked with my lawyer, and he said it was fine. Just not for extended periods or too often. But for that night, it was all right. Before leaving, I made sure the girls knew they could call me anytime if they wanted to come back home, and I'd be there for them. As I was leaving, my soon-to-be ex walked out and I'm not sure what they said, but my STB ex seemed confused by something my mill said, and my mill looked like she said, no, sternly. My STB ex looked at me with teary eyes and waved as I drove off. I had left food in the oven on warm, for the other betrayed spouse to show up. Eventually, she did arrive, but without her toddler. I asked where they were, and she explained that her in-laws wanted to spend Christmas with them and so did the toddler's father. She had worked out a similar arrangement with our lawyers, so it was fine. She was dressed nicely in a pretty dress, leggings, fluffy boots, and a nice wig. We had dinner together and talked about our past and got to know each other better. After dinner, we settled on the couch and watched a movie, continuing to chat about other stuff. Eventually, I decided to get a bottle of wine. I don't drink much, but I like a certain wine on Christmas. The OBS asked if she could have some, and I checked if she was okay with it. She said, yes. So I poured her some. Our conversation started with our past, then moved to our interests. And eventually, we talked about our current issues, which led to some crying. As we drank more, we started joking and laughing. Surprisingly, after 2 bottles, that never happens, our conversation turned more explicit. We talked about our kinks, what we want and miss in that department and more. Turns out we're quite similar in those aspects, actually pretty much everything. She mentioned that my wife was lucky and messed up, and I replied that her husband was the same. Some of you suggested I should compliment her looks, especially after her last attempt at getting my attention, but I thought it was inappropriate. However, I did tell her that she could take off the wig if she didn't want to wear it, and I assured her that she looked amazing without it. I even complimented her on how beautiful she looked with a pixie cut, and she took off the wig, thanked me and cried a little. We continued talking about those intimate topics and eventually ended up cuddling while watching a movie. Okay, just a heads up, we were both pretty drunk. Back when my wife and I used to cuddle, My STBX actually enjoyed it when I would gently rub her chest. Not like grabbing or pinching hard, more like a gentle chest massage. I did it out of habit. And when she said it felt good, I got startled and stopped immediately, apologizing for not realizing what I was doing. She said it was okay and asked if I could keep doing it because it relaxed her. I asked if she was sure. And she said, yes. So I continued. I got to admit it turned me on a bit, and she noticed, so she started rubbing me too. I was like, whoops. Sorry, and she asked if I wanted her to stop. I said she didn't have to if she didn't want to, and she said she wanted to. So for a few minutes, we did that, and then it led to kissing, and things got more close. This eventually led to her unzipping my pants and her giving me head, me then forcing her down, consensually, something we discussed, and giving her BJ. After that, we had some really rough act in the living room, kitchen, and the office. Eventually, we ended up in my bed where we had more passionate lovemaking, lots of kissing, and very slow act. After we finished, we cuddled and shed some tears, then fell asleep. The next morning, we had breakfast and showered. I asked her if she planned all this, and she laughed, saying that a girl always keeps an extra pair of clothes handy. Before leaving, she asked me if I felt anything last night. I was honest and said yes. However, we both agreed that we need to be careful and make sure these feelings are genuine and not just a result of the situation. She said we'll explore them later. As she left, she kissed me on the cheek and thanked me for a great night, saying she'll text me later. Later, I picked up my girls, and they actually had a good time with their mom. They told me she was on her best behavior for the most part. So right now, I just finished preparing dinner and will be spending the evening with my girls. Update. I know it's been a couple of months since my last update. Things have just been crazy busy. So I'll keep this brief. I get it if some of you think this is all made up. Reddit is full of liars and people who like to stir up drama. But anyway, the girls are doing much better now. Thanks to their therapist and engaging in activities, they're having a better time. They still have their tough moments, but overall, they're improving. As for me and the other betrayed spouse, we still talk almost every day, but we haven't done anything physical since that time. We did meet once after and both agreed that even though we don't regret what happened, we shouldn't have done it. Now on to my soon-to-be ex. For a few weeks after Christmas, she kept trying hard to get me to talk to her, but that is mostly stopped now. She's got herself a lawyer. My lawyer knows about it and said our meetings will be happening soon. She's finally realized that I'm truly done and that there's no changing my mind. I'm sure they'll want to try reconciliation, but that's not happening. She still calls and texts me from time to time, trying to make me reconsider, but I just leave her messages unread. Regarding the OBS's ex, he's actually been arrested. I won't go into too much detail now, but apparently, he confronted my STBX at her workplace and they got into a heated argument. She threatened to call the cops. And then he physically offended her. Other people at the workplace intervened and subdued him until the police arrived and arrested him. My STBX is pressing charges against him. I'm not sure if he'll get a lawyer involved for their affair, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. My Mel shared this with me and said I could visit my wife if I wanted to. Apparently, he gave her a black eye and busted her lip. But my Mill believes it's karma coming back to her. I haven't seen my wife since the incident and neither have the girls. Unless something crazy happens, you probably won't hear from me until after our first meeting with our lawyers. Hey, everyone, just a quick update on everything. A lot has been going on, and life can get pretty hectic sometimes. But I'll do my best to summarize everything for you. Let's start with my girls. They were making good progress and seem to be doing better. But as the divorce date gets closer and they realize that we're actually going our separate ways, they've started to struggle. Their therapist says they accepted the situation, but they had hoped we'd somehow work things out. The reality of the divorce is hitting them hard. My youngest is handling it okay, but I'm genuinely worried about my oldest. She's feeling really down, and it's concerning me a lot. I'm following the therapist advice and taking all the necessary steps to help her. But the therapist suggests medication, and I'm hesitant about that. However, it might reach a point where medication is the only option for my oldest. She's usually in good shape and healthy, but I've noticed some of her clothes not fitting well, and I think she's eating less. Her doctor and I have discussed adding things to her food to help her gain weight. I really hope we can figure this out because it's starting to worry me a lot. I feel like I'm failing as a father because I never wanted my daughter to go through this. If you're religious, I'd appreciate your prayers for my daughters. On another note, OBS and I are still in contact every day. We're getting along great and things are becoming easier, but she has some bad news. It's not about her health or her child, thank goodness. Instead, my STBX's ex has skipped town. I'm not surprised by this as he left shortly after being bailed out for assaulting my STBX. Turns out my ex was the last person to have contact with him. My suspicions were right. She was planning to press charges against him, but he threatened to sue her, alleging that she used her power over him to start the affair. In the end, she dropped the charges, and he decided not to sue and left. Nobody knows where he went, and his parents claim they have no idea. Do I believe them? No. But I have no way to prove otherwise. Now about our meeting with the lawyers. It was surprisingly drama-free. My lawyer presented my demands, especially pushing for full custody after the incident with the app. Her lawyer, however, seemed to ignore everything and insisted that we should reconcile for the sake of the children. My lawyer laughed it off and made it clear that reconciliation was out of the question, reminding him of all the issues and what she did. He still wanted reconciliation, but my lawyer said, "Very well, see you in court." 2 weeks later, my lawyer called me with good news. She agreed to all the terms, except for having the girls every weekend. Instead, it's 2 weekends a month and alternating holidays. Initially, she wanted all weekends, but my lawyer negotiated that down. I agreed to the terms because she's still their mother and I hope she has learned to prioritize our girls after everything that happened. My soon-to-be ex looks terrible. She's almost anorexic, looks like she aged 10 years, and I think she's even losing her hair. Even though I don't love her anymore, she's still the mother of my daughters, and it's hard to see her like this. I asked my mother-in-law to help her out. She said it's her punishment. I told her that she's still her granddaughter's mom and her daughter, and she needs to be there for them and get help. So my mail is working with her to get her back on track. She left me a note asking to meet in person in public one last time before the divorce, to talk things through. I agreed, and we're meeting sometime next week. It will be recorded and in a public place. We're still technically married, but the divorce will be finalized in first week of July. Just a few more weeks, and it will be all over. Update. Hey, everyone. Sorry for not updating earlier, but life has been pretty busy, especially with 2 active young girls during summer. Let me cover a few quick points before talking about my STBX in our meeting. Despite my reservations, we decided to put my oldest daughter on medication for a while. I discussed it with her primary doctor, therapist, and my STBX. She'll be on the lowest dosage possible, and once things stabilize, we'll gradually reduce the medication. My youngest daughter seems to be adjusting well with no major issues. She does wish we could live together again, but she understands why we can't. She's quite smart for her age. As for AP, he has completely disappeared. No one knows where he went. OBS and I still talk every day. Alright, here's the part you've been waiting for. So my ex and I met at the park, the usual spot we used to take the girls. I recorded everything just in case she pulled something, but luckily, she didn't. Most of our talk focused on the girls, and she actually agreed that it's best for them to stay with me full-time during our separation. She admitted that she's not in the right mindset to be a mom at the moment. She said, "I've clearly failed as a mother, and I need to learn how to be one again." But I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details since it was mainly about the girls. Now for the final part. As I was about to leave, I thought it would be better to just leave it at that. However, she had one last question. She asked if we could stop the divorce, go to counseling, and give our relationship another shot. I flat out said no. I reminded her of everything she said and did to me, how she allowed AP to treat me, and even brought up what he did to his own wife and child, which she knows about. I also mentioned all the things she put our girls through. There's just no way I can ever trust her or give it another shot after all that. I was like, "Do you honestly believe you deserve a second chance?" She admitted no. At that point, I was pretty fired up. I started telling her how much I loved her, how I gave up my career for her and our girls, and did everything I could to make her happy. She started crying, but eventually, I just stopped talking. She apologized, and I replied with sorry doesn't mean a thing anymore. Then for some reason, I asked her what the heck was going through her mind when she started this whole affair. I don't know if anyone here mentioned it, but someone sent me a YouTube video where a guy read my story and people were discussing it. I skimmed through the comments and some were spot on based on what she revealed next. Out of nowhere, she blurted, and I quote, "I wanted to be the one at home." I was puzzled. Then it all came pouring out of her. She confessed that she never wanted to run her dad's business. She wanted me to take over and manage it. She didn't want to work long hours at the business. Instead, she wanted to be a mom and a wife. She kept going, saying she wanted me to be the breadwinner while she'd stay at home, preparing meals, taking care of our girls, and enjoying that homemaker role. She never wanted the responsibility of owning a business. She went on for a good 30 minutes just spouting all of this. After she finished, she looked like she might pass out. So I asked, "Then why did you make me quit my job and tell me you wanted to run the business?" She said she wanted me to insist on taking over. I was like, "But it's not my business. And I have zero experience in that field. How could I run it?" I also pointed out that it would have been pretty awful of me to agree to run her dad's business without knowing anything about it. Then I asked her, "Why didn't you just say you wanted to be a stay-at-home wife?" She admitted that she wanted me to say it because she didn't want to admit it herself. That's when I lost it and said, all of this over some stupid pride. I told her I wouldn't have cared if she wanted to stay home and be honest about it. I was so angry at that point, and I'm still upset about it now. I asked her, "What does that have to do with the affair?" She explained that during the pandemic and towards the end, she was working so many hours and got jealous and angry seeing me at home with the girls. The app must have noticed this and started saying nasty things about me, like how if I were a real man, she could be at home. That's how the affair started. And she claimed she tried to end it once, but he would manipulate her by bad-mouthing me and making her feel envious of what she could have. So she would go back to the affair again and again. This led her to be mean and nasty to me because of her irrational jealousy, and all of this could have been avoided if we had communicated properly from the beginning. She then said she just wants her family back and for things to go back to normal. I was devastated and so angry that I couldn't stay there any longer, so I got up and left. Since then, I've been carrying a lot of anger in my heart and just feeling really pissed off about everything. Oh, I almost forgot to mention something important. Back around late last year, it turns out she was pregnant with a peace child. However, she had a termination and didn't tell anyone. My mill noticed she was acting strangely and thought she was just seeking attention, but it turns out she was actually pregnant. That's another reason why she was going through such a rough time during all of this.